First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this off, and I'm going to outline, I'm going to put it right over the patch. I'm not going to stick it on very hard because I don't want to ruin the adhesive. And I'm just going to mark the corners of the patch of where the tape itself ends. And I'm going a little bit bigger than the patch. And there we go. Okay, so now your patch should then sit right nicely inside there without crossing those lines. Gently score on the outside of the line. Again, that's just to make it a little bit bigger than the patch itself. Just cutting hard enough to score the paper here. So now I'm just going to do a little spiral inwards. And again, I'm just cutting enough to get this top layer of paper off. Okay, got that off. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually remove the paper itself, the top layer of it. So the brown under paper will stay. But I'm going to go ahead and take off this top layer of paper also. I've got a few edges here that I just use my knife to go ahead and pick that off. Okay, sometimes the paper's pretty stubborn and sometimes it won't come off at all, and that's okay. If it doesn't come off, then you just skip right to the next step and you'll just put the patch straight over the hole without removing any of the paper. You don't have to worry about it. But you'll see why we're trying to take off the paper in a minute too. Okay, so now once I've removed the paper, I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the edge because I don't want anything lifting up like that. So I'll go ahead and just clean up the edge now by putting my blade at about a 45. I'm just going to go ahead and just clean up the edge here. Okay, I'm just getting rid of any little loose bits. Okay, now I'm just gonna make sure that this right here should be totally flat. You know, I don't want anything sticking up on the edges of here. So if you do have any edges or anything, you could just clean that up a little bit too. Just getting rid of any loose stuff. So it's all as solid as possible under there. And you have a nice clean border edge right there. Okay, that's it. Go ahead and take my patch. Actually, when you first trace it, you should just keep the backing on it. So I've removed that. And I'm just gonna make sure there's no loose dust or anything here. I'm gonna stick it right in there. Okay, now this patch is recessed a little bit below the surface. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a little all-purpose joint compound and I'm going to take a little bit like this and I'm just going to spread it in there. I'm not really leaving any outside the patch. My goal is just to put a really thin coat on right now. Okay, I've got some debris in it because it's an old thing of drywall, so I'm just making sure those chunks are off. And that's good right there. As you can see, it's filling really nicely right into that impression. So it's not mounding up too much, which is good. Okay, so I'm just going to let that dry, and we'll come back to coat number 2. Okay, so it's just a few minutes later. I went ahead and used a hair dryer to speed up the process a little bit. If you do use a hair dryer, please don't leave it unattended. You could also put a fan on it. Or since it's all-purpose joint compound, you could just wait overnight. or for a couple hours. It was a very thin coat we put on there, and that's part of the reason why it dried quickly, and that's another reason to aim for the thin coat. I'm going to go ahead and just wipe off some of this right here. I'm not going into the edge here. It's a little delicate, so I'm just taking off the stuff on the outside and cleaning it up. I'm also going to give it a gentle pass here, and I'll likewise use the sharp edge of my knife to knock down anything that is might be sticking out, like right here. And my finger will tell me too. This is a very good transition right here into the wall. We're going to do another coat now and try to get this perfectly flush. In this case, we're now going to start going a little bit bigger. So I'm going to use my 10-inch knife and just going to put some mud in the middle there. So now on this second coat, I'm spreading pretty wide past it. And I have a reason for that. It's that the wider you make the patch, the more gradually it transitions into the wall. That's pretty good there. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it at that. Okay, so that's my second pass. I'm going to wait for that to dry now. And I'm going to show you how to do this without sanding and with sanding as well. So what I'm going to do is first I'll knock off any little high spots. And I can already feel, okay, right here I can feel there's a little bit of an edge. I can feel that with my finger, and I don't want to feel any transition into the wall. I want it to be one smooth line. So I'm going to go ahead and gently wet that down, ever so gently. I'm not going hard. I can feel there's a little bit of the harder spots. And I'll do a little pass here, and then I'm just going to take the edge of my knife blade, and I'm going to then go hard around the edge. Now I'm pressing harder on this side, on the outside, so that I feather. Now I'm pressing on that side. Okay, and this looks like it could use a little bit of a, but I don't want to rub too much away because it's getting me my beautiful transition. Another little trick, sometimes I will wet a sponge a little bit and then just do a little finesse thing on the edge. I'm just breaking down the edge of the repair for where it transitions into the wall. This right here looks a tiny bit heavy to me, but I have to be careful so that I don't overdo it. Okay. Okay, so let's dry that and see how it looks. Here you can barely see the tape through it, but it's still a smooth surface. And let's let this dry and take a look. As I run my fingers here, it's pretty smooth, pretty smooth. Here, there's a little tiny hitch right here. I can feel it's very subtle, but I feel a little bump right here and right here. And right here, there's a tiny little depression. I feel my finger over it. Let me go ahead and check with the straight edge. There's a tiny bit of rocking, very little, but there's a tiny bit, which means it's higher up here. So if I look here, I can see through, there's just a little bit of rocking. Let's do a little touch up with the sanding sponge. So I'll put my mask on. And hi, this is Andrew. Thanks for stopping by Drywall Dojo. If you're looking for tools and supplies, the complete list of what you need is in the description below the video. I've also included links that take you directly to the products at no extra cost to you. If you find this video useful, please click like and subscribe. And now, back to the repair. Okay, as you can see, that took relatively little sanding. I don't know what that was, 30 seconds or a minute, because we put thin coats on. and because we use the sponge and the edge of the knife to do most of our sanding and smoothing. Now when I run my hand over here, there's no hitches. That means that when we prime this and paint it, it will be invisible. Let's test again though and see. It's almost nearly flat. I mean, I could see a tiny bit of variation, but it's very small. I don't want to continue to sand because I don't want to get down to the tape. If you start to see the tape or a little bit comes up, you got to stop sanding because you don't. Good idea for you is always to do one more coat, and the last coat is a skim coat. So I'm going to take my mud. I'm just going to take my mud pan. I'm going to dip a tiny bit of water into it, and then I'm going to go ahead and just stir it around. This is going to make my last coat of mud very loose, and it's going to make it glide onto the wall in a super thin coat. I've got some mud on my knife. I can take a little off from the edges if I want. So it's mostly in the middle. And then I'm going to do one final coat. You can see this mud has a bunch of junk in it, but I'm going to go even wider. And this is just going to be a finish coat that really just eases and smooths and transitions this broadly into the wall. Again, with this particular patch, it wasn't a necessity to do that, but it does make it beautiful. So the way I'm going to finish this up is I have my little moist brush. I'm just going to wipe down the whole thing, giving a little bit extra wipe on the edge. Gently, gently, gently. And then I'll go over the main part of it just to moisten it. Get a little bit more water on that main part. And then I'll use my knife and I'll just feather the edge. And then I'll just come across it. And that's it. And we'll see when we prime it and paint it, but this is going to be invisible. I hope that helped you out. Thank you for watching Andrew's Drywall Dojo.